love leaving my plants in the ground into the very first frost. The last 2 nights the weather went down to 34 degrees, but you can see here with the right placement of your plants you can increase the growing season. This tomato plant is planted at the very front of my house where I get the most sunlight, and it is very close to the house, so it is in a microclimate that allows it to continue to produce even though it is getting very cold. For example, I have these Roma tomatoes growing right here, and they're out in the open, and you can see some of them are ripe and some of them are mostly green, and they're a lot smaller than the ones that I have closer to the house. If you can locate your tomato plants or pepper plants closer to a wall where they get a lot of eastern sun and they can get a little barrier from the wind, they will ripen and go longer than most other areas. They will ripen and continue to produce even in areas where you get down to 34 degrees. 34 degrees is basically the lower limit a plant can take. You can see my plants are doing well. I've harvested a bunch of the plants already because I want to make space for my other winter crops, but I love leaving a few tomato plants so that they can still produce more tomatoes. So you can see here, this is out in the open and the sun hits it really well. But since there is no wind protection or any wall to provide it radiant heat, the tomatoes are still mostly green. This tomato plant, however, has the overhang from the house and protection from the wind. So check out how many tomatoes are in here, and they're all fully ripened. This plant here will continue to produce tomatoes up until it gets really cold. So I just looked at the weather and it's supposed to be 36 degrees tonight, but the rest of the week it looks like we're going to be in the 40s and 50s. So what you want to do is plant your tomatoes in a sheltered location and give them as much sun as you can, and you should be able to have tomatoes here in Zone 7 until November. Obviously that really depends on the weather and whether or not we get a early frost. The one scare that we've had this week was good enough for me to uproot a lot of my pepper plants and put them into pots and put them into my garage, but certainly leave a few tomato plants and leave some of the tomatoes out there and see if they will still produce for you. I just harvested over 2 pounds from that tomato plant, and the weather has been in 34 degree range. So this demonstrates that tomatoes really can take the cold weather and can still continue to produce in cold weather. I am also growing these beautiful pepper plants here near the road, and the road is asphalt and it heats up and it creates a heat sink. And these pepper plants, last year I had a jalapeno pepper that grew well into November 15th. And that is super crazy because last year we had frosts before November 15th. So I believe that jalapeno actually survived 4 frosts. And I was very surprised by the fact that it survived 4 frosts. So I put that in a pot last year, overwinter it, and put it outside again this year. And guess what? I got peppers out of it. And the purpose of doing that is because I want to save seeds from that, because I know that it is very cold tolerant. So that's why I wanted to save seeds from that jalapeno plant. But check out these beautiful peppers I have growing here, and there is so much abundance in the garden even though it is late in the season. It is amazing how much food you can get from a tiny little space. So like I said before, we have gotten down to 34 degrees here in the last 2 nights. And this tomato plant here is not slowing for nothing. That is because it is against the house. It has the brick and it gets all of the morning sunshine and it gets full sun throughout the entire day. So that keeps your plant alive a lot longer. I've only planted one of these here because the rest of this area is actually planted with arugula, spinach, and other winter vegetables that I want to be eating. But I still want to keep at least 1 tomato plant here so I can get another few weeks of those precious sweet tomatoes. Check out these tomatoes hiding in here. I have so many tomatoes in this plant. These are green zebra tomatoes that I planted really late in the season, and check out, man, this is so beautiful. One harvest here very late in the season after everyone has probably uprooted their tomatoes, and I'm still getting tomato harvests. Here's another perfect example. This is a cherry tomato. It has produced for me hundreds of tomatoes, but I decided to leave this one in so that I can come in here and collect some tomatoes on a day like today that is 50 degrees but I'm still gonna be eating tomatoes. And right along the fence, I also have a ton of tomatoes still growing as well. This is amazing. I'm gonna be harvesting quite a bit of tomatoes today and a few peppers. I feel quite blessed to be able to grow my own food and to be able to feed my family with the food that I grow. Check out all this produce I just picked, and that is after having 2 nights in the 34-degree range. This is the abundance you could be growing in your house if you just put a few plants into the ground. This is such a rewarding harvest here. This is such a blessing to be able to grow your own food. So I encourage you to get out there, put some plants into the ground. And if you haven't done it yet, make sure that you are planting your fall and winter vegetables. Make sure you stay tuned and subscribe to the channel so you can see how to plant a winter vegetable garden. See you on the next one.